We could call this meeting to order. We could please start with a moment of silence for prayer or reflection. Thank you. Councillor Simmons.
Point of privilege, Your Worship. I just wanted to recognize the City Parks Department today. Tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning at 11, we will be at Kipling Garden and at the Strathcona Centre planting some vegetables in the flower gardens. And so the city has come together with a food bank to come together and do a sustainable food project in some of our gardens. So I just wanted to congratulate them and invite everybody to come out and plant with us at 11 o'clock tomorrow at Strathcona and Kipling Garden.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Cox, I owe you an apology, an error to the Heritage Resources report I gave last meeting. In fact, the centennial certificates are only given to businesses, commercial enterprises, and professional buildings as well. I feel badly about that, but I found out that if we were to give certificates to all of the homes in Medicine Hat that are over 100 years, it would break our bank. There are a number. And so I apologize. I know you were excited about the prospect, and if only your office was... You'll get over it, okay. I'm just really sorry that your law office wasn't there, and then we could really go ahead with that project. Thank you.
Okay, moving on now to adoption of the agenda.
Any additions? You have one? No? Okay. All right, seeing none, we'll accept the agenda.
Next up, we have adoption of the minutes from our last meeting on May 1st. You'll find on page 3.
Any errors, omissions? All right, seeing none, we'll accept the minutes.
I'd like to move on now to presentations. Our presentation tonight is from Jamie Rogers, who's the manager of the Medicine Hat Community Housing Society. And Jamie is presenting on the Thrive report, and it's item 3.1, page 44.
Welcome, Ms. Rogers. You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've also invited Mr. Chris Hellman, who is a member of the Council of Champions, up with me today to support. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening about an innovative, bold, and nationally recognized initiative in this community, Thrive, Medicine Hat and Region Strategy to End Poverty and Increase Wellbeing. Tonight, I respectfully speak on behalf of Thrive, those behind it, and those that will continue to bring it to life. The first poverty reduction report, moving from charity to investment, reducing the cost of poverty in Medicine Hat, pardon me, was released in 2013, and unfortunately took a back seat when our community flooded and efforts focused on rebuilding. An opportunity to revive the initiative was presented in 2016, and this community capitalized on it, launching Thrive on February 15th of this year. The research and resulting report was made possible with investments from the City of Medicine Hat Family and Community Support Services One-Time Community Development Grant, Medicine Hat District Food Bank, and the Medicine Hat Community Housing Society. Members of the Poverty Reduction Leadership Group invested a tremendous amount of time, shared their expertise, and created the space to truly collaborate for the betterment of all of our citizens. The development of the Thrive strategy is based on a collective impact approach, and it was written with community, by community, and for our community. It's a catalyst to challenge our status quo and find meaningful, impactful ways to end poverty and increase well-being in Medicine Hat and region by 2030, which is also the UN standard. The 5 foundational principles that Thrive was developed on and that will continue to guide the work include: 1, everyone has an equal right to justice, education, personal security and privacy, work, cultural, political, and recreational participation. 2, our approach is person-centered and community-driven. 3, to end poverty, we must prevent it in the first place. 4, ending poverty and increasing well-being requires a collective effort. And 5, social change requires innovation. Thrive is based around 13 key priority areas and is led by a council of champions formed out of those with lived experience, government, not-for-profit, education, and business leaders in Medicine Hat and surrounding area. The Council of Champions is being supported by members of the Poverty Reduction Leadership Group, which will help transition the vision of Thrive over the course of the next year. The Council of Champions currently has 6 members selected: Mr. Chris Hellman, who is here today, Dr. Denise Henning, our Member of Parliament Glenn Motz, Ms. Tracy Noulette, Ms. Regan Weeks, and Ms. Selena Simmons. Additional council members will be vetted to ensure Medicine Hat and region is represented by leaders across all sectors. Vital to this is ensuring those with lived experience are at the table leading. The priority areas are based on extensive community consultations, starting with individuals living in poverty. And we consulted every sector and community. The 13 key priority areas include leadership and systems change, community systems planning, income security, business innovation, energy poverty, affordable housing, homelessness, food security, transportation, health and wellness, learning and literacy, community safety. In order for the principles and priorities within Thrive to be put into action, the creation of a backbone organization with an executive director is required. The executive director role will be tasked with the development of yearly work plans with targets, indicators, and evaluation components to each element of the work plan. The work plan will include prioritization and systems planning framework development on the key priority areas, commencing the process to become a society and not-for-profit, fundraising, and creating the much-talked-about Funders Forum, where we can align our funding and community to truly invest deeply in those initiatives that make a difference. Our community has a reputation for delivering on innovative solutions to address social issues, and Thrive is now also in those ranks. On February 16th, 2017, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills, and Social Development in the Status of Persons with Disability chose Medicine Hat, one day after we released Thrive, to come to our community and hear about this initiative. We were one of 3 Western cities, the next biggest being Winnipeg and Vancouver. This project is setting out to do what some think is impossible and unattainable in any community. From my vantage point, anything is possible, and if there's going to be one community that can do this, it will be Medicine Hat. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Pearson?
Your Worship, I'd like to move reception of this report with our gratitude, and if I may, a brief comment.
I'll second.
Okay. Go ahead. Questions or comments?
It's exciting for me that FCSS funds will go towards the creation of that executive director's position. I think this is an amazing initiative on the part of Ms. Rogers and the team that have come together to make Thrive a reality. You have experience with making the impossible happen, Jamie, and the Housing Society has proven that homelessness is something that can be dealt with in our community. And we maybe have an advantage over other larger communities. We can deal with these things because we know our neighbors, and we know that we are in a smaller community where the impossible can happen. So congratulations on the success that this team has brought to the project, and on the outstanding people that you've recruited to be on that Council of Champions. Not least among them is Mr. Hellman, who's standing over there, and all of the other folks who are on there, including my fellow councillor, Ms. Simmons here. It's important, I guess, that we recognize that we are our brother's keeper, and this is one of the ways we can make sure that everyone in our community thrives.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Simmons?
And just a point of clarification, the FCSS funding that was given for Thrive was for the development of the program and the process and the strategy, so I just wanted to be clear on that. But I also wanted to thank Jamie for all of her hard work. The Council of Champions is really an exciting thing for me. I think ending poverty is possible. I remember back to when we started talking about ending homelessness, and I believe some of the comments were crazy or out to lunch, I heard. But I think we were able to accomplish that because we had people at the helm like Jamie Rogers who really pushed that policy forward and created systems planning. And I think that's what's great about this opportunity is when you look at systems planning and looking at the things that aren't working and getting rid of them and making sure we invest deeply in the things that are. And I think that's really important. So it's great.
Good. Councillor Friesen.
Well, thank you, Jamie, for your presentation. I've heard it quite a few times now, and it's always really compelling to me. I want to lend my support. As you know, we did pass a motion earlier on that said we were with you. And for me, I guess people will think, how can this be possible? How can we possibly end poverty? And when you look, though, at the Ending Homelessness Initiative, and you look at how poverty continues to grow and the gap between the haves and those who are really struggling continues to be wider and wider and wider, there's no question that something has to change. And so I really like the approach Thrive has taken. It's taken a long time to get here. But sometimes when things take that long to plan, they're very, very thoughtful in their perspective and in the actions that go along with it. So I just want to give my words of support. And I know it's not you. You're the spokesperson. This is as you said, written by the community and for the community, for those who are really deeply involved as well as those who help provide some of the necessary resources. So great, good luck to you, and maybe I'll come and help one day myself. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Varga.
Thank you, Jamie, for your presentation. Through the chair, just looking quickly at your key milestones, I think of your 17, I think most of us can relate to some of them in some way, maybe more than others. I'm looking at number 2 with the people with disabilities. I want to say that in less than 2 months, we're going to have actually the summer games for the Special Olympics that are coming with people with intellectual disabilities. I think it's going to be an eye-opener for a lot of people in Medicine Hat, and I'm hoping that lots of people will come and see the pure joy that these athletes bring to a community and to themselves and to the people around them. So I love the fact that you named some of the milestones, and I'm hoping that you can ascertain a lot of them in the time period till 2030, which seems 2030 seems to be a prevalent year for some reason, where everything's going to happen by 2030. So I hope all of this happens by 2030. I hope it happens before, but good luck on your project. I hope the community gets involved and actually fills out the surveys. We tend to have problems with that sometimes, with them getting involved in having their answers heard or their relationship with different things in our community told. So here's an opportunity for them to help out with your process, and hopefully you find out lots from what's working and what's not working in our community. I'm sure you've got lots of information already, and I look forward to future things. No different than Councillor Friesen. I'd love to help out in some way, somehow. If you need our help some way, in an indirect way or in a direct way. So look forward to it in the next few years.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor and we have a seconder. If we could call the question. And that was unanimous. Thank you. Okay.
Moving along now, we have our non-statutory public hearing, item 4.1 on page 8. It's a proposed direct control development application, number 13750 for 851 Industrial Avenue Southeast. We did the advertising and I received no submissions on this one.
So we'll have to have a public hearing. I will ask if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this motion. Please come down and state your name. I'll ask a second time if anybody would like to come down and speak for or against this. Please come down, state your name. And I will ask a third and final time if anybody would like to come down, speak for or against this. Please come down, state your name. So we have one. Go ahead.
My name is Kyla Hooper, and I was the one that have applied to have the discretionary change.
Okay, you're the one. Would you like to say anything to support your application?
I don't see any reason why it should cause a disturbance to any of the areas around the 851 industrial area in the Clay District. We are primarily running everything indoors and online. And if there was any questions that anybody had for me.
Sure. Any questions of the applicant? No. Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Through the chair, when we had this at municipal planning, I think the rules are pretty clear as to the do's and don'ts and what they have to abide by, and they agreed to do that. So I think it's real relevant in the case here where everything's going to be done inside. And if they do plan on changing something in the future, it has to come back again for a different permit. So they're living within the rules and will comply with the rules. So I think that was a factor when we moved it forward in municipal planning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it's DC. You know. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. We will close the public hearing. Any comments? Councillor Cox?
It's probably in the material, but I read through it and I missed it with my regard. What was the use of this property previously?
It was redone, and it's an open space for a warehouse.
Okay.
There's a number of businesses within that warehouse now. So this is just one extra space that's open for another person to go into.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, if we could vote. And that was unanimous, thank you. I guess do we need a motion for that? We need a motion to adopt that.
Yeah, it's just an adoption.
Yeah, but we just voted without a motion.
I introduced it, though.
Okay, you introduced. Okay, we're good. We're all right. City clerk says we're all right. So, that's good.
If you'd like,
No, that's okay.
if it makes you feel
No, I
more
feel fine.
secure,
I feel fine.
we can do a mover and a seconder.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a little ahead of ourselves
Yeah, so I'll make that motion that we proceed with this direct control development application permit.
here. Move for adoption.
I'll second that.
Okay, if we can call the question. And that was unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to reports. Our first report's item 5.1 on page 14, Administrative Committee meeting of May the 3rd. And this report's for adoption and information.
So moved.
Second?
Any comments? Yeah, okay. Well, okay, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Worship. Through your worship to our CAO, I guess I have 3 or 4 questions. The first one is there a Canadian supplier for this boiler? If there were no other bids, how is this tender advertised? Is it only in Alberta or nationally? And then the other question is, can one company's boiler be replaced by another company's boiler? Is there sort of a specification that would limit the boiler type to this one type?
You want to take a go?
Through the chair, I think I'd prefer to refer that one to the Commissioner for Utilities, just to make sure I don't step in it.
So through the chair, Councillor Pearson, your last comment on whether that could be replaced with a different boiler, that's very quite possible, but it might come with some modifications, which would include extra cost to doing that.
How widely did we advertise for this? Did we advertise nationally or just in Alberta?
So this project goes back some 10 years ago, which I'm not familiar with the process that was used at that time and whether it was local, regional, or national. It depends on the type of boiler that is being spec'd for, and it could be that it has to be something that's from outside the country or outside the province. So I'm not sure about that process.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess my question centers around the boiler as well, and it seems to me that shouldn't a boiler last longer than 10 years? Like, just normally, boilers last a long time, I would think, and 10 years seems to be quite short for a building of this size.
Through the chair to Councillor Turner, you're absolutely right. This is one of the areas where there was some value engineering in the design and build of the Esplanade 10 years ago. And so there were some, I suppose, known savings that were made at the time that we now have to pay for in our maintenance.
Councillor Friesen?
That was my question, I withdraw.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments on this, on the main committee? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Our next report is item 5.2 on page 20, Development and Infrastructure Committee meeting of May the 3rd, and this is for adoption.
So moved.
Second?
Any questions or comments? Councillor Simmons?
I just had a question on number 3, 603 First Street. I just wondered what the thought process was there about the city doing it versus us selling it as a direct control and allowing private to take that over.
Through the chair, I suppose we haven't, council's direction in the past has been to sell it for very specific development. This would be more of an interim use. If council would like to market the lot for an interim use, such as parking and vendors and so on, we could certainly explore that. We have not gone there because in the past, the direction has been very clear that it is to sort of be kept for the final ultimate use and for developer to step in at that point.
Am I correct, though, that if, just supplementary, sorry, am I correct, though, if we were to sell it and keep it under direct control, there's still an opportunity for us to guide the building when the building happens, right? There's still opportunity there for if there's any changes, right? Is that?
Through the chair to Councillor Simmons, yes, you have a lot of control over the type of development. You wouldn't have the kind of control that you have when you have an architectural competition and specify the kind of, windows and siding and finishes that are made and specifically the type of use within the building. But certainly the type of building, you would be able to specify the type of use that it's erected for.
Councillor Varga?
Through the chair, I looked at this also at the long-term A and the short-term, and just wondering what and you might not know that, I guess the short-term is $300,000. What's long-term A? If we can adapt, I would love to see it where we go to long-term A, maybe take out the boulevard, but have the parking lot where it's the same with the entrance coming the other way, so that in the future, it's not such a big deal just to do the outside part of it when we have the money to do that. At least we're already there. We don't have to change a whole bunch from the short term to make it into a long-term process, so I'm just wondering what the cost factor is in that. I find it interesting that, to me, long-term A looks a lot better than the short-term. And I think if we're just going to do the parking lot, we can leave the outside part and make that a future when we have some money to put that in. But at least we've got the 2 parking lots done with the entrance coming from a different way, and we just have to close off the one side. Take out the planters or whatever, just to make it work so that we don't have to change a whole bunch in the future. I don't know if that's what's thought of or possible.
So this was discussed extensively at admin committee. Did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Varga, that's exactly what it is set up to do, so that you can do this sequentially. There is no redundant work, nothing that has to be redone and changed between the short and the long-term option A. And in fact, we also restructured option B so that you can do it sequentially from A to B. There is a minor amount of redundant work there. Then there's about 80,000 of curb and gutter that has to be redone essentially, but essentially in option B, you're adding the roundabout, which is probably a long-term traffic management thing that our Municipal Works Department will want to put in anyway, obviously with a lot more beautification around this one than a normal roundabout. But really, these can be undertaken in sequence. Things like the planters are mobile specifically because it allows us to move them in the future, and we're not sort of putting down permanent trees and things like that. We're making sure that we can do it sequentially as we can afford to.
So basically, it's stackable.
What's that, sorry?
It's stackable. Once you invest the first 300,000, you're not having to redo that 300,000. The improvements can be added. later, at a later date.
No, I understand that, but I look at long-term A and see it as a better possibility or a better scheme right now to do for the cutting off that entrance, right? Making it so that in future, you don't have to do a whole bunch. You can still put the wagons in there. They can still go in and do their eating wagons can still go into that parking lot and make it feasible, just that they don't have an exit going out the other side. And then you build on the top part, it would be to the north. So I just see it as more feasible at this time than doing it the other way and just paving and putting up a few portable planters, right? So I don't know what the difference is in price. Maybe that's the altogether factor. But I love long-term A. So I'd rather see long-term A than the short-term.
Well, you could make a motion to move that forward rather than,
I would love to make that motion that we go with long-term A rather than short-term for the future of this development. No seconder. Oh, thanks.
sorry, I can't second you.
I just think it's a good deal.
Okay, Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'm wondering, in the committee discussions, was there any discussion? I mean, I know this lot's unsightly and it needs to be fixed, but I would just love to see this lot be sold. And we've owned this lot for 40-plus years. We have collected 0 taxes on this piece of property. I think did we collect some rent on this parking stalls, or a little bit? So we're getting a little bit of revenue, but it would be nice to see this property put up for development rather than just make it into a parking lot. And I'm just wondering if there was any discussion at committee to look at that at all.
Okay, Councillor McIntosh?
Thanks, Your Worship. This lot is an embarrassment for people coming into our city. Beautiful park across the street. City Hall is beautiful, and they look at this parking lot that I've had to utilize this space when I was involved with Spectrum years ago as a workable lot to house people and food, et cetera. It is not ideal. I think this solution to spend $300,000 is the right one right now. It will fix it up, giving more opportunities for whatever else might happen down the road, which certainly could be selling the lot and let somebody build something on it. But this will fix it for the short, medium term, and it will make it more usable space. So I do support this lot.
Thank you. Councillor Dumanowski?
Well, first of all, to Councillor Varga, I applaud your desire to see it beautified and enhanced and in some fashion developed to a better standard than it is now, and I think we all recognize the need to do that. Clearly, in the time of fiscal restraint that we are in, it's not only an exercise of optics, it's a necessity to be very careful about how and where we spend our money. We talked a lot about this at committee level, and clearly the short-term solution really takes care of the asphalt area and the unleveled concrete foundations that are left over from previous businesses, et cetera. It takes care of predominantly the main issue, which is where the people actually park. It develops a parking scheme that will largely be maintained regardless of which format, and it does beautify it clearly, and it does it for a reasonable dollar. There are many people out there, I assure you, who will see this price tag and think it's $300,000 too much. But we need to do something. I think the challenge for me, and I said it there, I'll say a little bit about it again, is it is unfortunate that we weren't able to develop it. I know the mayor had a vision, and I supported it, and so did others around developing this property. We've tried many times. One thing we held true to, and I applaud us, and I hope that we will maintain, is that we hold this property. We can use it for parking purposes, which we need, believe it or not, downtown. I like the delineation of the 2-hour and the permit parking, and I think it serves the community well, and it allows us to do some added features like the trucks and things when Spectrum's down there, and just on a Friday night, Sunday afternoon. So overall, for the price tag, what we're getting here, I think it's very appropriate. And again, as the mayor said, this is kind of a shell that can be built on and upon as we move forward, and only be enhanced that much better. But my greater hope is that we won't have to build on it, that somebody, when the economics prove to be true, that somebody can actually go there and put some underground parking and develop something there. I think the long-term vision will become a reality eventually, and I'm glad that past councils and the current council, I hope, will maintain that hope. And in the meantime, we'll put some enhancements in place. We'll make it better and enhance the look of it in the short term. Thank you.
Councillor Simmons?
I don't disagree that that something needs to be done with that lot. I guess my problem is we've been doing this for 40 years and we haven't been able to accomplish it. So who's to say that a private person couldn't develop it and couldn't make it beautiful? I think sometimes we have this need to control it, right? And maybe somebody could do it better. Maybe there's somebody private out there who could do it better. And in the meantime, we collect taxes off the land and maybe somebody does make it beautiful. You know, and so I guess my question is, at committee, was there discussion about selling it? If not, can we make a motion to send it back to committee to have a discussion about selling it? Because I would make that motion.
I'll second it.
You just moved to send it back to committee? You look like you want to say something. No. Yeah. Yeah, I was waiting, I kind of looking, was this discussed at committee about this?
Well, just through the chair, no, it wasn't, but no, it wasn't.
No, okay. Go ahead.
So through the chair, the lot is for sale. I mean, it's there in our inventory of lots for sale. If we haven't been marketing it, but it's there. If anybody has a proposal, if any developer wants to do something with this for anything, they can come to Lands and we would bring that forward to council. What we put the stop on was the council, the city's own development, obviously, as you know, but the lot is sitting there for sale. So I guess the direction would have to be actively marketed. Again, we probably need some guidelines as to what council is looking for in that process.
Well, at the call of the chair, I mean, if you want to take it back, or do you not want to?
I'm not sure it's my call, but if it were my call, I would like us to vote on the current motion. I guess you made a motion.
Okay.
I personally want to support moving to a short-term redevelopment and wait for the right kind of development proposal to come forward.
Okay, so we have a motion to, and a seconder to send this back to committee to consider a selling option, which it already is for sale, but we have a motion seconder, so we should probably vote on that right now. And that is defeated 5-3. Okay, Councillor Friesen, you were next.
Well, I'm not sure how relevant it is now. What I was going to say was this lot has always been for sale. It's been for sale for 40 years. And you know, it's really too bad. Well, it has been bought a few times as well, and it hasn't actually gone to the final stages of a sale. So I don't disagree, Councillor Simmons, with what you're saying in any way, because I totally agree. I think it is for sale, though, and if someone comes forward to us and brings a proposal for whatever, we're going to get it at council. So we haven't slammed the door on anyone, and in the meantime, if we could go with option A. By the way, Councillor Varga, I like the second option better too, but it's $500,000 more than the first one. And so if we go with the option A, the most economical one, and make this, create a more appealing looking lot in the center of the city, because it will have some movable planters, it'll have better lighting for safety purposes, it will look a little bit more like it's part of the total context of a attractive downtown. I think that might also generate some different kind of thinking or ideas from people who might have had development ideas. So, and then it can easily be converted to whatever development might come, because it's made to be a stepping stone for something else. So I think, and I'm not trying to build compromises that are unreal here, but I think what we're all asking for can happen in stages. So I'm going to support the option from the committee and hope that one of these days we're going to be sitting at this table and entertaining a development that's going to go on that piece of property.
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
This is going to sound a little repetitive, but totally concur with Councillors Dumanowski and Friesen on this. To me, this is an interim step, and it's the cheapest option towards beautifying the site, making it look more attractive, as Councillor Friesen said, making it look more part of the integrated development of downtown, and yet not putting so much money into it that if a good offer came along to sell it for an appropriate purpose, that we wouldn't consider it. So I think we're all really all on the same page, and I regard this as just kind of putting it in the holding pattern until the right development comes along.
Timing, yeah. Councillor Simmons?
I just wondered if we could separate out number 3.
Sure, we can do that
Okay, thanks.
when we vote. And we also have to remember that back in 2013, when we were mostly on board with this, the beverage building didn't exist. And now it has become that landmark, in some ways, building downtown that we'd always hoped for as a gateway to the downtown. And guess what? It needs a lot of parking, especially at night and on the weekends. And so maybe the highest and best use of this piece of property right for this point in time is a parking lot, but a much more beautified parking lot, which isn't an embarrassment to the rest of the city. So any other questions or comments, and we'll vote on these separately. Okay, well, let's vote on the first 2 items. Item number 1, the runway, and the streetlights. And that was unanimous, thank you. And if we could vote on item number 3. And that was 5, yeah, it passes 5 in favor, 3 against.
Okay, moving on now to Public Services Committee meeting of May the 8th, item 5.3 on page 44, and this is for information.
I move this report for information.
I'll second.
Any comments? Okay, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you.
Next item is item 5.4 on page 48. You'll find the Administrative Committee meeting of May the 10th, and this is for adoption and information.
So move.
Oh, yeah, good, thank you. Councillor Pearson?
Thank you, Worship. Through the chair to our CAO, about a year ago, we had complaints about a specific neighborhood, I believe it was in Crescent Heights, where water quality appeared to be an issue. The color of the water was the problem. It wasn't the fact that it wasn't pure or anything like that. And more recently, we've had an issue that makes it sound like the quality of water has been a problem for the Alberta health system over at the hospital. Now, I don't believe that for a minute, but I'm wondering if you can give us some kind of an understanding or an update on, first of all, how did we remedy that problem over in Crescent Heights, if that's where it was? And in fact, can you just provide us with absolute reassurance again that the water coming into the hospital is not the problem that Alberta Health has been facing with its sterilization of equipment?
Through the chair to Councillor Pearson, I can confirm that the hospital issue is not a water quality issue coming from the city distribution system. It is part of their own construction commissioning of their build, and in that process they have encountered some of these issues that they're dealing with. When it comes to the Crescent Heights issue, you're correct. We have some old iron pipes up in that area. We have a long-term plan for replacing that. It was moved up in priority last year, and we actually changed out the worst portion of it last year, but it will take a full 10 years to move through the entire Crescent Heights water main system to exchange everything.
Thank you very much, and I think it's really important that the public understands and acknowledges that water quality in this city is second to none. It's been an amazing kind of thing, and anytime we have a difficulty, like a problem with the color of the water in Crescent Heights, it's been remedied very quickly, and I'm confident in that. Some of the news reports I've heard on the media have sort of suggested that the water quality was the issue at the hospital, and I think we need to put that one to rest really quickly. I think it was new equipment and, as you said, the construction over at the hospital, but it was not the quality of the water, and it's really important that we all understand that.
Well, that's a good point. Councillor Friesen?
Thank you, Your Worship. May I just move quickly to item 2, the Medicine Hat Golf and Country Club loan guarantee?
Yes.
I support this. That's not the issue. It has come to my attention, though. I've been asked by several people about why we're giving, this is a misconception in the community, about why we're giving a golf club $100,000, and we have just completed a financially fit initiative that really looked at all the avenues of our spending. And I've been asked, certainly by a few people about this, and so it alerted me to the fact that that's the perception by many. If it's a few, it's many, when in fact it is not true. So I thought it should be cleared up. We are not giving the golf club $100,000. We are giving them a loan guarantee so they can use the $100,000 to do the kinds of projects they need to. It will be paid back to their bank and so on, but all we're doing is providing the guarantee. We are not giving them 1 cent. And so I thought it was important to let everyone know that and appease some of their concern about spending the money in this way. It does impact, if I'm correct, CAO Hageland, a borrowing bylaw or some kind of a status we have with borrowing, but then it's paid back. And tell me if I'm wrong, but my main point is we're not giving them 1 cent.
You're absolutely correct. This is not a loan, it's a loan guarantee. They need it, through the chair to Councillor Friesen, they need it because they don't own the asset, so they can't take security in any asset. We own the grounds, and so it's difficult for them to obtain a good loan of the good interest rate. So we issue these guarantees. Now, they would sit as a liability, I believe, and Commissioner Mustel can give the details around that, but they don't, so they may impact on our total credit rating, if you like, but they don't, it's not a loan. It's not that they owe us money, they owe the bank money, and we're simply guaranteeing it. It's one of the reasons we have the golf courses come in and report to admin committee and go through their financials so that we have an overview to make sure that they are in fact financially viable and that they have long-term capital plans in place and things like that.
Yeah, Councillor Pearson?
Well, and the other important thing for us to all understand is that the golf course belongs to the city, and here are citizens of our community that are adding to the value of that particular facility. They've done amazing work at creating a beautiful golf course, and it's largely the members who have added to, enhanced that facility, and they're really to be commended. They're using our credit to do something to enhance our property. And I commend them for doing it, and I'm glad that we can support this.
Any other comments? Okay, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you. Passes.
Next, we have reports for reception. On page 59, item 6.1, you'll find the draft minutes of the Medicine Hat Police Commission of April 20th and the police chief's report.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? I am. I'm giving you a second opportunity. Yeah, okay. If we could vote on this? Oh, yeah. And that passes unanimously.
Next, we move to new bylaws. On page 86, item 7.1, bylaw 4436, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to authorize the city to provide a guarantee to the Royal Bank of Canada for the repayment of a loan between the bank and the Medicine Hat Golf and Country Club.
I move reception of this, or I move passage of this for first reading.
If we could vote. That was unanimous, thanks.
Moving on now to new business. We just have a advisory board recruitment for the URAB board. We have one position CAO Hegland will hand out the ballots, and council will vote to appoint somebody for a 3-year term. Okay, so the results are in for the Urban Environment and Recreational Advisory Board. We have 1 vacancy for a 3-year term, and the winner is David McKenzie.
Can we get a motion to accept the vote and destroy the ballot?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. We can vote? That was unanimous, thank you.
And our last item of new business tonight is item 9.2. The 2016 City of Medicine Hat Annual Report is here for adoption.
So moved.
Your Worship, actually, if I may, I move the adoption of the 2016 City of Medicine Hat Annual Report. I was recruited for this. And I've got it all written out here, including summarized financial information drawn from the city's 2016 consolidated financial statements. Why don't you second it,
We
Rob?
gotta say,
We'll second that.
Any questions or comments on the annual report?
Just a quick comment, Your Worship, while you're looking down. If that's okay, I'll jump in. I really like the report, and I'm not just saying that. I think there are people who take interest in this, and you know what? We need to do this, and I like the fact that it's formatted in such a way that you can really pick and choose what I can't find the word, gauges your interest. That's the word I'm looking for. So if you're interested in image and profile, there are some really succinct points there that you can look at. It's kind of bite-sized for whomever is looking at it, and it's an easy read. So well done, and I think it's a great report, so thank you.
Yeah, good. Any other comments? You want to say something? Go ahead, yeah.
If I may, Your Worship, just a comment to commend our communication staff, because I think a few years ago, you used to receive this in the middle of July. it is now barely the middle of May, and the report is out, and it is of a higher caliber, higher quality than it has ever been. So I'm just so proud of the communication staff. They've worked so hard on this, and I think it really, it serves the city very well.
Look forward to another award. Any other questions or comments? All right, if we could vote. That was unanimous, thank you. Oh, go ahead, yep.
This isn't on the other item, but I'm feeling guilty about laughing. And I just know that those watching us at home are probably wondering why we are laughing at the Police Commission report. And that's not really fair. I just want everyone to know we're having a little fun with Councillor Pearson. Because Councillor Pearson usually asks about 100 questions or tells us things about the Police Commission report. And so we were just having a little fun with them. And for those of you at home, we are not laughing or making jest of the Police Commission minutes.
Point.
Oh, sure.
So seeing no more business before this council, we're adjourned.